Welcome back, everyone, to episode 2 of Road to Second Chance. My name is Gavin. I'm the host and creator of Survivor Los Angeles, which is a one-day fan-made game of Survivor, which is based in, as you could probably guess, Los Angeles, California. To date, our series has welcomed 97 players over the course of 6 seasons. This segment, though, we're going to be covering our second season, which took place back in January of 2024. And as with the last episode, I am joined once again by season one player and perennial production member, Steven Soto. Steven, welcome.
Thanks, Gavin. Happy to be back.
And now, of course, we're also going to be joined by the player who survived all the twists and turns throughout season two and came out victorious on the other side. Welcoming season two winner, Andy. Welcome, Andy.
Hey, thank you so much, Gavin. Yeah, excited to be here. If there's one reason you should try and win Survivor LA above all others, there's a lot of good reasons to try and win. But being part of the winner circle and getting to come back and do things like this are, that's primo. That's the best. So thank
It
you for
is.
having me.
You get to have all the opinions and none of the pressure. So what could be better? So together throughout the course of this segment, we're going to be walking through all the moments throughout season two, biggest moves, blind sides, telling some stories that may not have been heard over the videos or live streams. First, I'm just gonna start off with sort of the basis for how the season was kind of created, and I'll lean on you for some of this too, Stephen, as a member of production and helping develop this game. Stephen, I'm curious from your perspective, what was the experience like first, coming from season one, having played that first season, joining production?
Yeah, definitely. So, coming from the playing side, it was quite an experience. I had a great time my first season, had my own backstab, my own twists and turns that I had to deal with. And then coming to the production side, great, I get to be the one to help bring in these twists and turns and help see how the next season of players get to use that to their advantage and how they play. But also, the best part of that whole experience is to really see the back end of things, how the cast interact, how the cast gave their confessionals, and getting to see how they all strategized with one another. Where I didn't get to see that because obviously I'm with my tribe and how my tribe gets to kind of float those ideas around and then not hear from the other teams and whatnot. And so it was really good to see how everybody interacted and coming back now to see how Andy, you talk about your experiences and see how you get to relive all of this from your season as well.
Yeah, getting to relive it through the fog of memory, right? It's we'll see how much is accurate, right? There are the stories I just told myself along the way to make myself feel better about how I got here.
I'm sure that all the players from season two will be sure to give us all the fact checks about our presumptions about what they were thinking at different points in the game. So this season, we wanted to keep things relatively simple, stick to the, core tenets of Survivor to the extent possible. However, this was also kind of in the middle of when I think season 44 had just kind of wrapped up. And so we were really toying, or Survivor, the actual show, was really leaning into and toying with the idea of like risk versus reward, going to journeys and seeing people make decisions about, well, if making these blind choices about if I choose to do I trust the people who I just met from a different tribe enough to try to earn some extra power in the game, or is that risk just not worth the reward and I just want to maintain my vote? So we really leaned into that idea by offering a couple opportunities for players to go on journeys throughout the season. This was also a season that started out with three starting tribes, which is very new era esque, and stayed in really those tribes throughout the pre-merge phase of the game. And Andy, you actually went to the very first tribal council of the season as your tribe unfortunately lost. What was that experience like for you, recognizing that someone from your starting tribe was about to be the first player voted out?
Yeah, it's always like just a gut check because you never want to be the first one voted out, and as soon as you go to that first tribal, it's a possibility. So that you it's good because it immediately puts your head in game mode, but at the same time, it's rough because it could be you, and you haven't had like that long to create these bonds. Like for me, I like to slowly warm up to people. And when you go to the first tribal, you don't have time to do that. You have to say, "Hey, are you my friend? Like, we're in this together from now on." Um, and as I remember, that first tribal was a little messy. Um, yeah, there was. I felt like, at least for me, I was caught kind of between two groups, and made promises to both groups, and then coming away from it was looked at as kind of a liar, at least by some people, and so that yeah, really, I think, impacted the rest of the game. But yeah, it's nerve wracking getting into that first tribal council.
Yeah, and I remember normally in first round votes, you typically see a tribe come together and it'll be, unanimous vote out with one vote being the person who was voted out. In that first tribal council, though, it was a 4-2 vote, where one other player voted with Hannah. Just to refresh our memories, the players who were on that starting tribe were, of course, you, Andy, Tay, Gabby, Rusty, Noah, and Hannah, and where Hannah and Noah wound up voting together. And Hannah was unfortunately that first player voted out. But you mentioned feeling like you were caught between kind of these two groups. Who from your starting tribe did you vibe with the best?
So initially it was Rusty. So Rusty and I kind of locked it down, and then basically Rusty and I were between the two groups, and I kind of thought we were going to go with Noah, um, but Rusty, I guess, had a great conversation with Gabby and Tay and was like, "We're going with them." And for me, like, I don't like to put my foot down too early in a game, and so I was kind of like, "Okay," but like I really just lied to Noah, like straight up, and I feel like I tried to mend that afterwards, but I don't think it really took. So yeah, but those were the two groups I felt like Rusty and I were kind of caught between.
And then, of course, in the second round of the game, you all were able to avoid going to back-to-back tribal councils, which not very new era-esque, actually. I feel like typically once you sort of lose a step that early on, it's so hard to catch back up in the new era, but you all managed to make it happen.
Was
What
that the
happened?
challenge
So, oh, go
where
ahead.
we did like the verbal relay?
I think it was. Yep.
That was, yeah, that was because that was one of my favorite challenges. I thought that was a really great challenge. Just the two teams coming up with different strategies about how to relay information. And I feel like it was like by like 1 or 2 point, like it was
It was.
razor thin. Like we won, but like barely. Like it was, yeah.
It was incredibly close, and I remember we actually had to, like, triple check those sheets because it was so close on that challenge. And it's so funny because, we're talking, of course, about this season in in the context of season coming up, which by the time this is released, everybody will know is Second Chance. And so as a result, there's a lot of challenges that we might see return, both fan favorites and challenges that people said were not their favorite because they were difficult. So, and this is certainly one of the fan favorites. However, it has evolved over the last 6 seasons and four since season two. And I think that the newest evolution of what you're describing as kind of this verbal relay, is going to be very fun to watch people interact with. But I'm curious, whenever you're in one of those rounds where you're fortunate enough to not be going to tribal, it what are conversations strategic, or are people kind of like willing to be like, okay, let's not strategize now that we don't have to?
Well, I guess for me, every conversation is strategic, whether it is about just, making bonds with people. But that is just a strategic thing too. I mean, like it doesn't have to be outwardly strategic about what are we doing next round, and I think it's hard to convince people to break off in a round like that. You kind of want, especially when we just all survive together, you kind of want to bring everyone back together. So, but that's not to say that you don't want to have conversations that you learn something. Like, I'm always trying to learn something about other people. I think that's both a strategic thing, and it's just the fun, like, part of this community, right? I want to get to know people. I came here to meet people. Why do other people want to come play these games? But that can also be telling for how they might play the game down the road. So yeah, uh, there's never no strategy involved, at least for me. I feel like, yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, especially in a one-day game, you have to really take advantage of like literally every moment that you have because, there's not
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's just not time to waste, really. I'm gonna fast forward for us a little bit here because the next round sees us swap from three tribes into two, and then of course, unfortunately, Andy, you find yourself back at tribal council. But interestingly, there was an uneven number of players during that round and or during that tribe swap, and Dave wound up, I believe, going to exile as a result and not voting in that first round of the swap tribe. I'm just gonna keep us moving because I want to keep broad strokes, but feel free to stop me at any point. Then the next round sees a double elimination where both tribes went to tribal council, and we had an individual immunity winner from both tribes. Those you being one of them, and Carlo being the other. What was the significance for you of winning individual immunity sort of at this pivotal stage where two people were about to be eliminated?
Yeah, I kind of got it was I look at it as kind of a fortunate thing that I won an individual immunity, but wasn't the winning tribe, so I didn't like have that spotlight of, oh wow, like this, challenge beast, but at the same time good enough to not have to worry. And if I remember correctly, so who went home that round? It was
Christopher and Adrian.
Christopher. Yeah,
Yeah.
so Christopher from my tribe, and it was down to me and Christopher. And I remember Christopher like looking over at me and basically like pleading, like, "Hey, let me win." And I just, yeah, I knew that we had the numbers, we had the power, and so like that wasn't like, yeah, I feel bad. You like there's this, you want to help people, you want to like be nice to people, and at the same time like, yeah, but that's not good for my game, and I don't want, anytime I can take immunity, I'm going to take it. There's some people who believe you shouldn't, go for every immunity. You don't want to become, a target that way. But for me, I want every immunity. I want to sit at tribal council safe anytime I can. So yeah, I was glad to win that.
Well, on that exact subject, though, of that, ooh, do I do it? Do I not do it? You kind of are toying with that idea of, oh, you have your kind of villainess from people who were in selfish kind of modes from, early seasons of Survivor in the series, and then to now the new era where it's kumbaya and a lot of friendship. Speaking
Yeah.
from a villain, I'm like, oh, great, okay. But, thinking in that kind of regard, how does that kind of correlate to your game then when you have to make that decision of, great. Should I be selfish? Should I be backstabbing? Should I be cunning in this? Or should I really try to keep my relationships this early on, even though at this point it's actually not that early. We're at that midpoint in the game by now.
Yeah, I think that like the head and the heart is tough in an LRG, because you are trying to build that community. I think that for a while I was very much playing. I think that like this game was my pinnacle of playing more like the good balance of those two things. Before I probably played too much with my head, and then since this game I've probably played too much with my heart, where I've kind of like give people too much grace, too many opportunities. Um, I mean, there would have been a strategic benefit to letting Christopher win because then that builds an inroad there. But there's a question like how many relationships do you really need? Um, because you have to cut someone, you're going to hurt someone, and yeah, especially yeah, just not someone who I just betrayed in the show. I didn't really betray, but like didn't let win in the challenge. For them to go next is fine. Get just move along. Yeah, you're not going to help me down the road. So yeah, but that's tough. It is tough. These interpersonal relationships and how you deal with them really matter for the whole game.
And it's like it's one of those things where it's so tough to balance because like you also on one hand, you when you find yourself in the mainstream of or in the current of power, especially like in those pre-merge phases and those rounds, it's like you don't from experience, I've never felt like the type of person who's like I want to go and like upset the apple cart in the hopes that me doing so will then build and generate trust with new people. And I'm also just generally a risk averse person. Um, but there was one more round in the pre-merge phase of the game in which Noah was eliminated in a 5-1 vote, and Andy, your tribe was fortunately safe from tribal council that round, which is great. Considering, I'm just gonna consider the pre-merge phase of the game as sort of quote unquote early, but was there anything in particular that really stood out to you about the early sort of dynamics of the game?
Um, yeah, I felt like I was in a decent spot, but again, like part of the least part of a group. Um, so like like I felt good with I think it was Katya and Tay, like felt really strong with them, but felt like I was kind of the expendable one. And so going into that merge, I was really trying to build as many other relationships as I could. And
Absolutely.
and Noah going out was I was like Noah was a really cool person, but Noah was also the person who I betrayed, felt kind of bitter against me. So seeing Noah go out right then was kind of like, okay, that's one thing I can let go.
Yeah, one fewer person that might, point the finger at me at some point, right? Which is
Yeah,
always good.
yeah,
In some cases, whenever there's kind of a or not a miscommunication, but just a desynchronization of of interests that early on in the game, it can almost be better uh for you as a player to see new possibilities with new players versus trying to mend fences with someone when you don't know how deep that that sort of disconnect really is. So I can
yeah.
totally understand that feeling there. And speaking of your original tribe, then also sees Rusty go right after Noah as the merge boot. Was there any consideration in your mind, to try to keep Rusty? Were the motions just too far gone at that point, or was were your games did your games just sort of grow apart as you were on different swap tribes?
Yeah, once we swapped, it was you just kind of you have to start over at some point with a swap. You want to keep the people close, and you want to hope that those relationships that you had can help you. In the case of Rusty, that relationship was not going to help me. There was seemed to be kind of a consensus. The people on the other side were ready to do that, and at least a few people from my like it was going to be a majority vote. And so that was not where I wanted to stick my head out and say, no, well, I want, you know, I'm going to die on this sword. And maybe that, I don't can I like talk about where the game ended up and how that this might affect that? Because
Yeah.
might have had, I barely won this game, right? Like I don't, you can't get any closer to losing than I did. And one of the people who didn't vote for me at the end was Rusty, right? That was one of the people who I kind of thought I might get his vote, and I didn't. And I think because of this, not standing up for your allies turns your allies against you. It's you hope that they want to still see you win, but when you put their name down, get why they wouldn't. So
I want to pull Steven into this conversation, and not I'm not saying this to be targeted, but I think that it's fair to say that in season one, Steven, you were kind of viewed as a little bit of a villain because I think a lot of the people who played season one would have fit in very well with a new era cast. We can put it that way. And I think that you were ready to play Survivor because you've watched and you know sort of how the dynamics are, and so you kind of wanted that experience, whereas a lot of the other people were coming in with very little exposure. But I'm curious from your perspective, Stephen, like how do you try to balance that, those two dynamics that exist, and trying to maintain your relationships with people that you've met early on in the game versus trying to prioritize a path forward for yourself.
Hey, and I think that that saying where two things can be true is a very relevant kind of concept to those who've played Survivor or watched the Survivor from the beginning to now watching it as of recently, where yes, I made friends and I got to know those people that I really never got to know, in that game. But then also you meet the people where your attitudes clash. And I think that's the big thing is kind of where, hmm, is he going to be great for my game later on the road, or is it better just to get him the boot now? And so that kind of comes into play where you really think about, as Andy talked about with Rusty, is great. I had my relationship with Rusty, and I'd hoped that would carry on with me. But was there at a point where did we clash and I didn't kind of maybe acknowledge it at the moment and boom, you're gone. When we talk about episode 1, I'm sure Luke will, Luke as a person comes up as a player that he and I were very much adversarial towards one another, and in the end, he was the boot. And so, do we have that argument early on as we did? And as the game progresses, I just need to get him out because he's just going to be my detriment if let's say I ever made the final 3 and he's on my jury. He's going to definitely not give me a vote, but it could also help sway how the rest of my jury would vote as well. So I think it's definitely a balancing game. I can still be friends with one another, but I'm also going to not be your friend to win in the end.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like do you ever like how deep does your villainy run? Do you ever feel bad about a vote?
I think my villainy runs in a way where I feel bad when I've made a genuine connection with that person. But if I did not have that genuine connection with you, I don't feel bad at all. Goodbye. You're just you're done.
That's fair. Yeah, yeah.
Heard it here first, everyone.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. And I want to the next round of the merge, second round, was a very interesting one because there's 10 people left in the game, and it's kind of become, a Survivor Los Angeles almost staple that at the final 10 there's going to be a double tribal council with 5 people in each group going to tribal council separately. And your side of the vote actually, Andy, was like relatively calm considering what happened on the other side. But I'm curious, do people in the game, when they know that there are going to be 2 people eliminated, does that change the way people think about who should be eliminated versus if this was just a traditional one person being voted out round? Like, do you think Bennett would have been voted out or would have been one of the major names floated had this been a single person going out instead of 2?
Well, I think when you divide the tribes into different numbers, new opportunities present themselves. So here, I don't think Bennett would have necessarily been the next vote. I think that Bennett actually was a really, really dynamic social player, and probably would have been able to keep the connection. I didn't see Bennett as the next target. Um, I mean, I might have tried to target Bennett, but I don't think that necessarily would have been successful. And if I think this was the other time where I think this is the balloon one, right? Yeah, I think
Yep.
this is like another random immunity, but it wasn't like a split immunity again, so it didn't seem like sole winner, which was always nice. I always like to, not, I'm a team, like one of the 2 people will win. But yeah, I think that when anytime the tribes are split, and we've seen that in the new era a few times, like just new dynamics form and new opportunities are present. And so if you can like capitalize on that and say, hey, this person's not good for my game, I have the numbers now, I wouldn't in a bigger group. Sometimes it leads people to taking bigger shots.
So this is also a round in which you're on a tribe with 4 or with 3 other people that wind up being the final 4, yourself and these 3 other individuals. Do you feel like the bond that's formed in these smaller groups can sometimes almost serve as a another way to mix up the game, and to like build new relationships? Or do you think that more often than not, this is just another obstacle and you're just waiting to get back to your people on the other side?
No, I think this is absolutely a chance to do that because, as you said, it's a one-day game. Things are happening fast, and so you have just condensed opportunity to talk to these people. In a group of 10, you're going to have a little bit of opportunity to talk to everyone, and probably not that many one-on-one conversations. But in a group of 5, you absolutely are going to be able to split off into one-on-one conversations. So I think I was able to connect way more with Dave, which really really helped me. Um, able to connect way more with Katya, who eventually became basically like the person who I was working with most closely. Um, and yeah, and me and Tay had always had a strong relationship. So I think that being able to solidify some of those relationships and form those relationships absolutely made a difference through the rest of the game. And I think that's what's fun about those kind of those splits like that.
Absolutely. I want to talk just very quickly. I know that you weren't present in this at this tribal, but for the second elimination of that double elimination round, because there were 5 people at tribal council, yet 6 votes cast because of an extra vote that was played. The initial vote count wound up being 2-2-2, but then Gabby plays an idol on herself and nullifies 2 votes against her, which means that there are now 4 votes that count in that round, and it's a tie. So then it goes to a revote between Aubrey and Jen, and then ultimately, Jen gets eliminated in a 2-1 revote, as the 2 people who actually voted for Gabby, whose votes were then nullified, wound up voting for Jen because I think they were working closely together. Um, I just want to get your reaction to like a tribal like that, where it is truly, I think, so dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's like so many things to play there. An extra vote, an idol, and yeah, when you have to go, anytime you have to go revote, there are so many options and things you can do. Where how does the, you don't want to go to rocks, right? Especially with 2 of your 5 people. With that, I guess that would have been a would that have been like a Cerise situation? Because if Gabby and one other person are both immune. The other 2 people uh, can't. Yeah, that would have been the fifth person would have gone there. So
It would have been, yeah.
yeah, yeah, like that. There's a lot. There's like so much going on at that tribal that they like. I feel like that's where like like people with true strategists can emerge and pick apart those numbers in the way that some other people might not be able to. Also, really sad to see Jen go. Big Jen fan. Big Jen.
Yes, as we all are. And so actually I want to hear from your perspective, Stephen, from a production's perspective, because on one hand, I know that whenever moments like that come up for me where um like as a game designer personally, I would hate to see someone get like defaulted out of the game. And on the flip side, those types of so I'm glad it didn't go all the way to that end of the extreme, but also those moments can be super entertaining. If you can remember, Stephen, what were your thoughts when that tribal council was unfolding?
Yeah, so and as I think back at this tribal council specifically, you have a great kind of group of people, and all of a sudden, you're at this kind of you're getting ready to get into the end game, and all of a sudden, you have this 2-2-2 kind of situation. What happens here? You have, we obviously know what happened, but Gabby could have preserved her idol because who knows, she might have needed it for a later round, which obviously she did. But in thinking about it, could there have been maybe a split? Could there have been something where, okay, we go to a recount. If Gabby hadn't used her idol and had maybe thought about, am I really on the chopping block or am I not? Could there have been something else where I could have done it and gotten, you know, onto the side of work with Jen to get Aubrey or work with Aubrey to get Jen? I think that would have been another smart move on, her part to maybe prolong her game a little bit longer and use an idol where she really did feel threatened. But it can be what it is, and I think in this situation, you know, as you said, Andy, everyone's a big Jen fan, so it was really hard to see Jen go, but it was, I think, her time at that point. But she had made it very, very far in that game.
I was reviewing a lot of the meet for like so funnily enough, season 2 is one of like the best archived seasons that we've put on because we weren't doing live streams, and so everything was just videotaped. And so I was looking back at some of that stuff as we were creating promo material for season 7, and that tribal council in particular is just it is such it's just a masterpiece to watch unfold, because you see the celebration of Gabby when she realizes that 2 votes were cast against her. And of course, from their perspective, they don't know that an extra vote has been played at that point. And so they think that the 2 votes were against their alliance. And so then, therefore, they were safe. But little do they know that Aubrey actually played 2 votes against Jen, which was just an absolutely like that is a big brain move on Aubrey's part too, to be able to sniff out that, hey, like in a situation like this, if something goes wrong, I need to have this extra vote on my side, or else I am going to be the one who goes in an idle play. So being able to force a revote, even so it's just the celebration, and then seeing the dejection, and the other side start to celebrate. It is truly just such a masterpiece. One of my favorite rounds, I think, tribal council rounds that the series has produced. So, um,
Yeah, it's fun.
I'll,
It's fun when you get fireworks like that, right? Like that's why you do it, right? Like it's just especially on the production side. Like when you're watching that happen, you're like, yes, what are they gonna do? Play because you only have so much control over the game, and so you're hoping
yeah.
your players are gonna do interesting things. And when they all do interesting things like that, you're like, this is beautiful.
And like it's so funny because like you have the fireworks on that side of that double round, but then now in retrospect you look back and the other side, even though on paper it may have been like a little bit less crazy and look more mundane, there's actually so much that that strategy that happened clearly in that round helped the four of you coalesce so well. So I mean, that round really I think defines season two. If I had to say, just I mean, it was a fantastic showing from both sides of that double elimination. And I'm always sad when someone gets eliminated in a double because it's a double, but they need to happen in a 1 day game, and
Yep.
that one was worth the price of admission for sure. Um, Unfortunately, after Jen goes, Gabby is next to go in a 7-1 vote. Then we move on to round number 9, where then Carlo, who had won the past two individual immunity challenges in a row, and if we think back to when we said that Andy had won individual immunity in the pre-merge phase of the game, Carlo had also won that. So he had clearly proven himself to be a challenge threat and was eliminated in a 4-3-1 vote, uh, in which, again, an extra vote played by Dave was the tipping point there. Do you have any, do you remember much from that round in particular, Andy?
Oh yeah. Well, that was like kind of a defining round for my game, because that was the round I think I told Dave that they were coming for him and that he should play that extra vote. And that's what got us across the finish line for that because Carlo was a beast. Like there was, yeah, very very scared of Carlo. Like I was hoping to win a few individual immunities, and with Carlo in the game, I was like, I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. So being able to do that, and that was like also a move I could point to at the end because Carlo was one of the only three people. I think I win the game with without a majority of votes, and Carlo was one of the three people to vote for me. And I think it was because there's some people who betray betray Rusty, and Rusty's upset. Betray Gabby, Gabby's upset. But outwit Carlo, and Carlo is impressed, right? There's different people on the jury will do different think of the game in different ways, and Carlo was like a true gamer, and so yeah, that was a huge round because otherwise I don't think I'm getting to the end if Carlo stays in.
Yeah, I mean,
If Dave doesn't play that, if Dave doesn't get paranoid and play that extra vote, yeah, I'm not making it to the end. So
that is such an interesting round to follow because of the fact that I mean that again, you think about like game defining um rounds. I mean, that is where if Carlo doesn't go, it's likely that Katya goes in that case because then it's a 3-3-1. And so then it becomes a little bit, I mean, I guess it becomes a yeah, that would have been very interesting to see play out actually, but putting someone who winds up in the top 4 being potentially eliminated at that earlier stage then opens the game up to the other quote unquote side of the game there. And then the crazy rounds keep coming because in the following round, Andy, we see you win individual immunity. You are safe at the final 6 of the game where it was an actual tied vote. 3-3, but an idol is played on Katya. I think it may have been Dave who played. I don't remember who played it on Katya.
was it? I thought it was Tay.
Oh, it was Tay. You're right. It definitely was Tay. Yeah. Um, and so Tay plays the idol on Katya, and Katya then is saved, and then Aubrey is eliminated in a to nothing vote, and then move on to the final five, where Dave wins individual immunity. Kelly receives 3 out of 5 votes and is falls just shy there at final five. And then the season 2 was also the only round in which we have had a fire making duel decision instead of a final four vote. And in that, Andy, you won immunity. So what went through your walk us through kind of your thinking um with that round.
That was yeah, that was a tough round. Because I'd been close with Tay the whole game, but I also knew looking at the jury, there was like zero chance I was gonna beat Tay. Um, and Tay had asked me not to put her in the puzzle against Dave. Um, and so I probably should have taken a page out of Steven's book and been more of a villain in this moment and said, well, I'm doing it anyway. But I was kind of still trying to maybe I can still get Tay's vote. So I'll do the thing that Tay asked me, and if Tay which was just risky. Like in hindsight, knowing it was a puzzle, I should have just been like, no, I'm going against Tay, because I was like pretty sure I puzzles are like something I'm usually pretty good at. So I was pretty sure I could beat Tay in a puzzle. And that was just nerve wracking watching them both struggle through that puzzle, and just watching Katya like slowly build a lead. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, come on, just flip the pieces over though, flip them, just flip them.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think everyone was surprised at my decision. Yeah, I like kind of remember, and it felt almost like a last second, like, what should I do? What should I do? This is what I'm gonna do. I hope it works out, because there's the future is always unknowable, and I had really no idea kind of what the jury was going to do. But I knew the jury was going to pick Tay as a winner if Tay was in the end with me. So Tay couldn't go. Tried to honor Tay, but yeah, I don't know. What did you think of that, Steven? What did
Well, it's the end of the day. It's that last challenge that we have going on, and that fire challenge did take quite a while for them to figure it out, and because obviously we're not making a real fire, it's a puzzle in the middle of a park in LA, and so I'm rooting for both of them for whoever gets it on my end of things, but honestly, it was really your choice as to who you were bringing with you, which ultimately you took Dave and then gave it up to Katya and Tay to say, hey, whoever really wants this wants it. And you made that risky move. And so looking back on it, do you think that if you were going against Tay and switched out of Katya, and as long as we were standing there watching that puzzle go unfold, do you really think you could have done that puzzle as quickly as you say you could have?
Yeah, I think so. I'm like, yeah, like I was just like, so I got like puzzles. I just sit here with puzzles surrounding me. I like difficult puzzles. So, a jigsaw puzzle is, it's definitely a tricky puzzle, but I think I could have blown through that puzzle pretty quick.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I'm not, I like to be humble in some places, but puzzles.
The puzzle master. And so
I'm no
you know,
Christian Ubicki. I'm not Christian Ubicki. I'm not. I don't
yeah,
want
the 3-second slide puzzle.
to.
um Yeah, so I mean, I think that was I mean, ultimately, I think that taking Dave after seeing how the game plays out, ultimately, I mean, clearly all the decisions that may have been shaky led to your ultimate victory. And so that was, definitely probably a very difficult decision. Um, but clearly at the end of the day was the correct one, as it earned you kind of the win there. I am curious, as we're kind of thinking about this final tribal council, and did you think that it was going to be as close as it was, or did you think that even if it wasn't necessarily for you, that it may have been more lopsided, or did you walk in thinking, well, actually this could wind up being a pretty close call?
Yeah, I and I think this really like cemented this in my mind, but like I don't know how to predict juries. Um, yeah, I going into it, I thought I knew I had a chance. I thought I had played a pretty good game. I'd won some immunities. I'd done some interesting things, and I thought I could speak to my story well. Um, Dave is a really funny, charismatic guy, so I knew that he probably could say some things, even though his game was much more chaotic and didn't, the through line wasn't as clear. The strategy didn't seem as strong, but his relationship building was really good. And Katya also played a really good social game. So I was definitely worried. And I also, and some people are just, they're voting not for someone, right? Some people are like, I don't necessarily think this person should win, but I definitely think that person shouldn't. So I'm picking someone else. And so, yeah, I hope that I hadn't created too much animosity. And again, just like barely, right? Like, is it possible? You can't get any, like, could you get any
I think you can.
like, you counted the votes at final. There was 9 votes cast. 4 of them were for me. Um, yeah. So I didn't get a majority, but I still somehow got the win. So
Yeah, I mean, that's the only win that's come down to a tie-breaking vote. And so, the season before you, it was unanimous. The season you're on, it's tie-breaking. And everybody else then sort of has their own split. So what does that kind of say for you to have a kind of a record kind of vote system for you in that situation?
I mean, it's like a bad record, right? It's like not the kind of record I want. Like the record would be cool if it was like the one in vote. Um, but it's like the least of the, like I feel like in the winner circle, I'm like the least of the winners in a way. Like not really, but like in
No.
in some ways, right? Like it was so close. Um, yeah, I'm just happy I got it, right? It's you play these games and to get the winner monkey off my back, like I thought would allow me to play games more openly. Not really. I still try and win. And I still do make scared moves to try and win. But yeah, no, I'm happy that it worked out the way it did. I'm happy I brought Dave so he could give me that last vote. But yeah, like any person defects, like one of the 2 people who voted for Dave choose to not, it could have gone the other way. So and like yeah,
Yes.
and like the pure like the split of like 3-3-2 is also like that's so close. One person switches from me to Dave. All of a sudden, I'm picking someone. I don't even know who I would have picked.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I will say too, like I think that what was really interesting about I would say probably honestly, probably from, like, Final 7 onward is that, like, that what you're describing, kind of this idea that, like, one vote really could have flipped things from for a lot of the votes. One decision or one thing goes differently, then, I mean, we could be looking at a very different outcome at the end of the season. I think that, Tay was certainly, a front runner on the top of the jury's minds based on even just based on their reaction when Tay was eliminated from the fire making duel, and the reception, that they received from that jury. Um, Taking it back to the final tribal council, once the votes are read and it's discovered that it's a 3-3-2, how certain did you feel that Dave was going to go into that voting booth and write your name down, understanding that you had just taken him and whatever other factors sort of may have come into play into your mind there?
I mean, when you ask that question, I think that I may have like kind of understood the last question in that I think that looking back on it at that moment, I feel like I felt defeated in a way because I think that probably going in, I thought I was going to win. I knew that I didn't really know, but like then it could be close. But I think I thought I was going to win, and then so to be in a tie and have to rely on one last vote, I was completely unsure because I like at that point I was like, well, my jury reads were off. I don't know what's going to happen, and there's nothing I can do about it. So you know, please, Dave, maybe
Yeah.
But at some level, I was also kind of I was happy. I mean, even at Final Four, I was happy because I think that I would have been happy to see any of those people win. I would have been happy to see any of us win at that point. I think they were all fun, good people who I enjoyed playing with. So, um, you know, glad it was still glad it was me because I get to come here and do this. But yeah, I was not sure at all that Dave was gonna choose me.
Well, it wound up happening, and you became the second winner of Survivor Los Angeles. As Steven said, it was so funny going from kind of this opposite experience in season one, where it was really almost a unanimous decision, to then, like we've been talking about, literally the closest it can get to winning. But ultimately, all that matters is that you have the win. You have the champion trophy, the $1 million check next to your mantle, I'm sure. And yeah, so is there anything else that happened in season two that you sort of have thought about throughout the course of this interview that you think would be good for the viewers to know um, before heading into our sort of monumental season seven?
Yeah, I think that, I think for people who are going to play, it's always good to remember that the relationship you have, like, at the very beginning doesn't have to be the relationships you have at the end, but it can be. And to kind of make decisions that you think are best for your game. I think the hardest thing, the thing I always find hardest in these games is, you want to make decisions. You're kind of reading your opponent and thinking, what do they think is best for their game? But in some ways, you're never going to know because we're all different and we're all our own kind of crazy. So what other people are going to do is kind of up in the air. So I think, looking back, I love this season. I think it was such a great cast you put together. There were some really, really strong players. I know, like, part of the end of this is that I'm going to try and guess who you're going to bring back. And having talked through this, I'm kind of like, oh man, I don't know. There were so many people who are worthy of a second chance for a variety of reasons. Um, so yeah, I'm just glad I got to play with all these people.
Well, we are very glad that you decided to play the game, and we are very excited as well to, as you mentioned, bring back some of the players from season two to enjoy 2 years later, another go at Survivor Los Angeles. Of course, coming up next week, next Saturday, will be the installment of Road to Second Chance, which will be covering season three with our season three winner, Justin, who I'm sure is very excited to talk about that season. For today, I want to thank Stephen and Andy, both of you, for your time in breaking down everything that has to do with season two. Hope that everyone is super excited and planning on joining us, if not in person, then on the live streams on Saturday, May 30th, which will be Survivor Los Angeles season seven, Second Chance. Any parting words from either of you?
Stephen, please.
Well, I look forward to our returning players and wish them the best of luck on this front from their season. Andy, congratulations again on your win from 2 years ago, and thank you for your time to come out and speak about this. You had an incredible season, you did very well, and ultimately got that victory in the end. So again, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you both for giving me this time to talk about. I love talking about this stuff. So it's just a pleasure to be here and do this. And I think I love a second chance season. I think everyone second guesses all their, like, micro decisions they made in a game. Could I have smiled then? Could I have talked to this person? Could I have voted differently? And so this is their chance to redo it, right? Is it in the same park?
It's in the same park as season six, which is a part
Okay.
different in Pasadena, but yeah.
Nice, yeah. So you get to come back to the park, you get to relive your dreams and change your game, or don't. And some people shouldn't change anything, and some people should change everything. So I hope everyone makes the right decision and creates an amazing season.
And if you want to hear more from Andy and the rest of our winners, we will be doing another Winners Circle segment once the cast has been revealed, and they will be breaking down all their thoughts on the 20 people who are going to be playing in our seventh season, our biggest season yet, our longest season yet, potentially our hardest season yet. So much to look forward to. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you all next weekend.